Hi, everyone, and welcome to the very first edition of Flagship Digital Insights right here on Yachting International Radio. My name is Ria. I am your host for this episode only, and I'm here to introduce Ben Taylor. How are you, Ben?
Hi, Ria. I'm very well, thank you. How are you? All good?
Good, good. Yeah, well, it's beginning of another week, and let's see how this one goes.
Yeah. Well, this is warm weather now, and we can get out. I mean, it's been a lot worse, and I'm in the north of the UK, so sometimes it feels like a world away from the Mediterranean and Caribbean and all this. But yeah, it's all right. I'm good.
Well, that's the important thing. Well, Ben, tell me a little bit about yourself. Where you're from, the UK, obviously. What is it that you do?
All right, okay. So I've fairly recently started my own company called Flagship Digital, and our mission is to really just increase the availability of really good technology to marine businesses. Quite a lot of that is around digital marketing, but we also do payments. And just really helping companies navigate the digital scene. And at the minute, with no boat shows occurring and all this mayhem going on, Flagship Digital Insights is just really a resource for these companies to gain some tips and listen to experts so that they can then bring that to their business and really benefit from these little snippets of information.
So with this show, what is it that you're going to be doing and what type of information are you going to be giving to the public?
Okay, so we're getting in a series of experts. We're going with one per episode, and they're going to be in a really niche field of digital, and we're basically just going to get as much information out of them as we can. So there'll be a few stories of what they've heard and what they've done with different companies. But also just diving into detail. We've started quite broad. We kind of where to start with digital. Do you start with a website? Do you start on socials? What kind of messaging and where your focus can be and what the options are. And then we're going to go into quite in-depth niche things like marketing automation and website personalization, all this different stuff, and just really get an inside perspective from these experts.
Do you think, yachting for the longest time, I think, was pushing against digital. They didn't really, the entire industry hadn't really gone into the digital platform concept yet. Do you think that the lockdowns across the world really made them focus on the fact that maybe digital was sort of the way forward?
Yeah, I think it was already happening. I think it was already moving towards it, but then with the lockdown and everything going on, it didn't really become an option. The option is no longer. It's just you will need to do this. There's not really too much of an alternative. And if the businesses want to survive and communicate now, that's a very different technique and methodology to what it was 10, 20 years ago. And now we have a situation where it's very different from 1 year ago or 6 months ago. So it's a really interesting time to start looking at this stuff, and plenty of things and ideas coming out of the industry. The biggest one being virtual boat shows and that kind of scene. But yeah, it's going to bring a lot of change, and it'll be very interesting to see what arises from it. But certainly from the space that I'm in, it's interesting times. Yeah.
When the yachting industry sort of jumped online, as it were, when the lockdowns happened and boat shows were canceled, etc., did you find that they did so in a methodical manner, or was it a bit more chaotic than it should have been?
Yeah, I think chaos would be fair to say. But I mean, because it's so new and it's such a big topic. It's not kind of right. Is your business online? Does it do digital? Yes, tick box, done. It's kind of it's always to what extent. The best analogy I always give is just comparing it to the physical world. So, okay, did you do an event? Right, okay, you might have exhibited. How well did your stand perform? How many people visited? How large was your presence? So you could have been there, but had quite a limited presence. You could have been an enormous sponsor of the show and had a huge presence. And that's that's just a really easy way to think about it online, because you can have a website, but the traffic might be really, really limited and small. It could be huge, and you could have a whole network of presence across the online kind of space. So I think companies were very eager to jump on. Right, we now have a virtual boat show because we're not going to the normal boat show. But the way it was done, I think companies rapidly realised that it's an enormous task to do that. But with time, I think there will be some kind of really strong virtual boat show and really strong digital experiences and ways of selling that's going to keep these types of businesses alive. But it takes time. And there's always this argument of who's going to be first to be there, who's going to win the long-term game, who knows?
Well, I mean, I think one of the things that I did notice is that, the virtual boat shows, it seemed like absolutely every single company was popping up with a virtual boat show. Some of them were eerily similar. Others were completely different, but it wasn't, I don't think it gave the same feel as an actual boat show that you go in person and you have, the ability to meet up with industry experts. You have the ability to talk to one another. Do you think that virtual boat shows will take over the traditional boat show, or do you think that those two can stand side by side?
Yeah, I'm very much I think they will become side by side. And I think one of the biggest challenges is the social element. Because face to face, that's incredibly social. That's what we're designed to be. We're social animals, and then it's a very social industry as well. So there's that side. But in terms of functionality, it can actually be far more functional to get a lot done digitally. And one of the things I said in an article was that the potential scale of a virtual boat show is across the world, and the majority of the companies there with enormous audiences that you simply could not bring together in one space, in one venue. But to do that is very difficult. And one thing you said about individual companies starting a show, I kind of started to look at it as they're doing an event rather than a boat show. Because you look at these boat shows and it's never just one company. It's a network of companies that work together. And so as a collective, it becomes a boat show, an experience, a day out, and a trip that's worth making, rather than visiting one company for a day.
There has been an argument made lately that yacht shows have become an industry unto themselves. So it's not really the yachting industry, it is the yacht show industry. How would people, as a collective coming together, be able to make money off of a digital show?
Right, okay, so this is really interesting, because I don't see why with the digital shows they tend to avoid the charge. And a really interesting theory is kind of the perception of value. And so if something is free, just by the nature of being there, you don't put so much value on it. If you've paid for something, you then have this anticipation and expectation, along with excitement, to kind of expect value and have value. And then from a commercial perspective, okay, 1,000 people came to your digital boat show, but they didn't pay anything. So what are we going to sell them, which is going to be our gain, financial gain? That's quite hard to do. It almost becomes like the freemium sort of model, rather than saying, actually, if we can charge for a certain amount for a ticket, then we can put more resources into it and build it into a better show that people are expecting good things from, and that all builds to the excitement and the anticipation. But again, very, very hard to do. With the large and premium shows, especially things like Monaco, how comparable is a price to visit that show compared to sending everyone a VR headset and all going into a virtual space, each with an avatar, and doing that kind of approach. Don't know. I see that as realistic, certainly within the next few years. But it takes a huge organization to actually make that happen, and a lot of time, man hours, and it would be incredibly impressive.
Well, and I can also imagine though that there is a limit, no matter, at an actual boat show, there is a limit of the amount of people that can attend straight across the board. I'm not sure if they've ever met that limit, but there is a limit. In regards to digital boat shows, there is no limit.
Correct. Yeah.
So you could essentially have 100,000 people at one time, all watching the virtual boat show and part of that boat show. So free or not, ticket sales or not, the fact is you're actually exposing whatever it is your product is to a huge audience, an audience that you wouldn't necessarily have had before.
Yeah, so it's interesting when you look at the accessibility of boat shows. So far, there's always been that physical barrier, but then also the extent that you can go. Like I started to think about this, then talked to a few people, and they soon kind of raised the idea, right, okay, you can have your full fleet there and every boat there, which would normally be an enormous cost, if not just logistically not practical. But then you can look at kind of, well, why can't you test drive a super yacht? Because it's digital. Why can't 100 people be doing that all at the same time, or on any yacht they pick? And so the extent that you take it to can rapidly become very exciting. But again, these are huge projects. There's the technology there to do it. But how you bring that to the industry, how well the industry is going to take to that, from a B2B perspective as well as to consumers, nobody knows. And I think it's that uncertainty that's causing these delays and kind of getting these companies to question: are we really going to do it? Are we going to go for it, or are we going to kind of put the feelers out and try little ones before they go all out?
Is this something that you're looking at yourself?
So I would love to kind of be involved in that sort of project. Am I in a position to kind of say, hey, this is the flagship boat show? No, give me a few years, maybe. Who knows? But at this point, I often come across a lot of great technology that is the sort of thing that would be necessary to actually bring a project to fruition. Especially in the artificial intelligence space, which is exponentially progressing. But I don't know. Would I like to? Yes, I'd absolutely love to. I think it would be a whole other partnership network to actually make it happen. But yeah, it's a very cool prospect, definitely.
Well, I mean, the industry definitely is changing, and I think, right from the big guys down to the little guys, everyone is looking towards the future and how they can, if this new normality, as they're calling it, tends to stay, how they can continue to do their best business and grow their business while operating within the confines of what we find ourselves operating in today's day and age. Yeah. Do you see that the digital in the future is going to be where it's at then?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's already really got proof. I mean, okay, it's a different situation, but you can look at other industries that have taken to technology a lot more willingly and a lot faster than our space, and look at the progression that they've seen and experienced. But absolutely, for yachting, I think this is the kind of the shake-up that the industry needed to really refocus the minds onto what's it going to become, and then digital being a glaringly obvious option. But I mean, as someone who's fairly new to the space and as a startup and bringing new things to the industry, that's a really exciting space, because everyone's looking around going, right, what's next, what's new? We can't do what we've done for 20 years. we've got to do something. What's it going to be? Which is, yeah, it's really exciting for me again.
Well, who's going to be your first victim on your show then?
First victim. Oh, so he's not a victim. He's a really nice guy. But it's Art Hill. So he's out in Florida. He helps businesses navigate digital. He's mad on fishing. He's absolutely crazy about fishing, but he loves it, and he kind of refocused his business to be around that topic because it's what he loves. And then we've gone through this kind of broader range where to begin on the digital, and he's got some great insights for us. So that went really well, and that should be really cool. Yeah.
Excellent. Well, we're definitely looking forward to this show, and it's going to be a weekly show. So we're excited about that because we did see, on the landscape that things were changing in towards the digital sort of landscape, as it were. And I really wanted to reach out and find somebody who knew what they were talking about so that we could actually help people navigate. So we're really pleased to have you on board, Ben.
Hey, thank you. That's a huge compliment. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Well, once again, don't forget to tune in to the weekly show, Flagship Digital Insights, hosted by Ben Taylor. We're really looking forward to it. Thanks for tuning in. My name is Ria. I have been your host. Tune in for the next episode.